Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Seasonal Movement Podcast. And today I'm very excited to introduce you to Mae Dungo. She is a nurse practitioner and a real estate investor, like a financial freedom, not just an enthusiast, but a coach. She teaches people how to leverage finances, but her day to day job is to be a nurse practitioner. So when we had our 5 to 10 minute introduction call, I was very captivated by her story. She moved from a very four season like environment in New Jersey to a perhaps 2 season environment in Texas, but she has noticed that the seasonality affects her in a very different way that we might not really often think about. So every time we go into springtime, I usually get an allergy shot. That is just kind of like my thing to do. I've been doing that for over 7 years, but for the past 3 years, I haven't had the need for it. So my is like she got into that, and we started to talk about allergies and how that made me realize the importance of understanding seasons from every single little perspective. So I'm more than excited, and I want to introduce you guys to Mai. Hi, Mai. You want to let us know?
Hey, Ruben, how are you? I could totally relate to what you were saying about allergy season and symptoms because I was suffering from the same issue. So it's very interesting that this is your topic today because I feel like you and me have something in common, and probably the audience too have some fair share of experiences when it comes to allergies.
So I'm gonna start with a question when it relates to allergies. Is that why so many of us treat the symptoms, whether it's by taking a pill or whether it's by, in my case, I was taking a shot. But how about adjusting to our environment through behaviors? What can be that effect that we can have when we do it from that perspective when it comes down to allergies and health in general?
So my insight to that is some people treat it versus like reactive versus proactive mindset, right? Most people are trained to treat symptoms after they occur, but not to prevent them. So I feel like it's our job to basically examine how our health has been in the past few months prior to the allergy, right? So culturally, healthcare is often symptom based. So I'll fix it when I feel it, or not system based, such as how do I keep my body in balance, right? So also convenience culture, like quick fixes, over the counter medications, or sometimes even antibiotics. I actually have a fair share of stories to tell you that some of my patients have been treating themselves with antibiotics because they just have the sniffles. So it feels easier than changing routines and environments. It's
Hmm.
it's convenience for a lot of people to take a pill than to change their habits, their diet, improve your sleep, or maybe just the simple fact on how to filter your air at your house.
So it is interesting that as the environment changes, depending where we are in the world, it brings allergies differently. I have a family member in Madrid, and as we were talking, she said there is about four allergy seasons in Madrid, Spain, and they come from different places, even from other continents. There's like wind patterns that bring that allergy type into that location. So, it is about also the fact that when we're taking a pill, we cannot completely ignore to try to understand why it's happening. And I want to hear from your perspective, moving from New Jersey to Houston, Texas. How was that awareness that started to trigger in you? Because when we were having our conversation, there were a few moments that you were very aware of what was happening.
Yeah, so I didn't really realize that it was happening to me while it was happening to me because when I was in the Philippines, I was born and raised in the Philippines. Moving to New Jersey, my mom had this terrible allergies and I never understood, like, come on, like, third world country, you were born and raised from a third world country and now your body couldn't handle this type of air. So I feel like now that I'm experiencing it as well, people underestimate how the geography, air quality, humidity, sunlight exposure, and local allergens actually affect the immune system. So especially when you get old, your body kind of your immune system kind of weakens as well. So instead of adapting to the local changes, the default of some people is the usual treatment routine. So for me, my experience is New Jersey. I wasn't having very bad allergies. But when I moved to Texas, it was really bad to the point that my eyes would itch. And then, like, I would always have this red lines in my eyes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I look like a zombie. And then sometimes the sniffles, the sneezes, it got so bad. And I never understood, like, why is this happening to me? I mean, I know that my body is adjusting, but the fact that this is a little bit severe kind of like took me by surprise, really, because I never really understood why it's happening to a lot of people. But now that I'm experiencing it, it's a complete 360, the changes that happens in your body as your body adjusts. But now that I got used to it, I got treated, now I barely have allergies.
Interesting. The move for me was from the tropic, from Venezuela, from the Caribbean to the Midwest, and suddenly I start noticing a pattern. So I want to dive a little deeper into the seasonality of the year based on where we
Mhm.
live, because I started to feel anxious at certain times of the year. I felt like not very energized, kind of foggy, kind of demotivated. And at other times of the year, I will feel overwhelmed and excited and like exhausted. I'm sorry, like very exhausted. Like, I'm getting excited for too long and then I will kind of crash. And my question to you is, what do you notice from your energy perspective when you move location from New Jersey to Texas, now that the seasonality is very different? Perhaps what you felt in the winter, now you feel in the summer, and vice versa.
That is an interesting question because as I said, right, geography, moving from New Jersey, which like is super cold, seasonal, and has different allergens, to Texas, wherein it's hotter, humid, and pollens, a lot of pollens. So I feel like it triggers your biological adaptation. So the immune system was not really failing, it's recalibrating. Like these sneezes that I have, the fatigue that you have, or the congestion that we both have weren't signs of disease. I feel like it's a sign that the body's learning to adapt to new environmental inputs. So I feel like it's not really getting sick, it's just building resistance. So the
Got
body
it.
kind of like have to get attacked for it to be stronger.
So talking about that resistance, I have noticed people that live in milder temperature, milder weather, perhaps in Florida is a good example. They still get seasonal affective or like winter blue like um, feelings, perhaps for a short amount of time, but you're talking about getting used to it, building resilience. And living in the Midwest and you living in New Jersey, you build that resilience, but then when you move to Houston, it's so easy to lose it. So perhaps you go back and travel and then you get a lot faster into those negative loops, perhaps. So talking about resistance, it's like inverse. You might build resistance in one area, but then you lose resistance in another one. And having that geographic awareness and then being able to be grateful with yourself. Like, okay, this is normal, but I'm not gonna take a pill, but perhaps I'm gonna change my behaviors. What are those behaviors that have helped you build that resilience over time?
To me, it was diet, exercise, sleep pattern, also sleeping early. Because sometimes, as you said, like I feel like the circadian rhythm has something to do with how our body adapts as well. Because I noticed like a lot of people, if there's studies that have shown that, oh, you can eat without food in like 5 days, but not sleeping for 3 days would actually make you go crazy. So I feel like we need more sleep than food, and studies have actually shown that. And just fix the diet, fix the nutrition, exercise, sleep, also stress. I know it's easier said than done, but try to avoid stress. And you also have to reflect what in my environment has changed, or maybe what about my behavior? It just needs to be adjusted on how I respond to stress, or how can I help my body adapt instead of suppressing the signals, just like
So,
over the counter medications, right?
So I have a shameless plug here because that's from a behavioral perspective how I help my clients go through seasonal adaptations, which is sleep is the number one behavior you want to take into consideration because usually it's the one that gets out of whack when the sun patterns change throughout the year. And becoming aware of that and adjusting that sleeping behavior is like the one that is going to give you the most benefits from like from your biologically, from every single area. Like, we're talking about allergies. The difference between having good sleep and having bad sleep is going to affect your allergies a lot faster. So sleep is like you get the biggest bang for your buck, and then exercise, like you talk about it, movement, getting those endorphins up, those hormones and neurotransmitters, like getting the heart rate up, getting a little sweat, like that will prime you to have a a stronger immune system as well. So those are like the order that we follow. And then you mentioned nutrition. So like nutrition being like it follows through. So like that's like again the biggest bang for your buck. And notice that we haven't really been talking about perhaps a biohack or perhaps a supplement. Like I feel like people so often can, like how you see that with people coming into your practice asking like what can I take or what can I do, from expecting like this 10-minute practice will fix something, when in reality it's more of like a lifestyle and a habit. Is that like the biggest trend you see? Right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. People would come in and try to fix a problem with a band-aid. I was like, let's dig deeper because there's something going on that you need to fix in your life and not just medicate, right? There's a lot of illness now that have been caused by poor diet because I mean, fun fact, diets that are rich in antioxidants, like people will underestimate the power of berries or veggies or omega 3. It actually reduces chronic inflammation. Also
Oh yeah.
vitamin D, the sunlight, zinc, probiotics support immune modulation. So I feel like if you have a poor gut, you have a poor health in general.
Oh
And
yeah.
as you said, sleep, deep sleep. I don't want to be too scientific, but deep sleep actually enhance production of cytokines. The cytokines are proteins that regulate immunity and inflammation. So just a simple fact that you sleep and you eat properly would change your health completely.
When it comes down to nutrition, yeah, there is some neurotransmitters that actually start in the gut. Like, it's something that we don't think about. When I look at a healthy routine, I also introduce outdoor connection to people that you actually care and love, and novelty, because of the neurochemicals that induce in our brain. But it's not just our brain, it's in our gut. So it's just crazy to think that our body is so complex. But when it comes down to behaviors, have you noticed how your behaviors when you move from New Jersey to Texas completely change as they relate to the year? Because my understanding is that in New Jersey, sure, you have a harsh winter, but in
Hmm.
Texas you have a harsh summer. So there's like this inverse relationship. And often when I think about seasons, I think about, Midwest and up, because that's when we experience the winter. But the more I go into, the more I notice that this is something that we all experience no matter where we live. So the inverse relationship between winter and summer, being the summer the toughest season in Texas compared to the winter being the toughest season in New Jersey. Can you talk to me about that? How your behaviors adapt, unconsciously? Perhaps you don't go as much outside. Perhaps you start moving a little less. And all these things that happen because the environment becomes a little more harsh towards you.
Yes. So that is, I love that question because I noticed that in Texas, I go out more than usual. I move more than usual. And actually, I eat better. I eat better because, like, just the simple fact that I am out in the sun all the time makes my mood better. And I was looking it up. I was like, I found out that just 15 minutes of sunlight a day, it boosts your mood chemicals like serotonin and vitamin D production. So no wonder I felt better. I felt so much better when I'm in the sun versus me, just being indoors and not putting myself out there. I mean, in the summertime, I couldn't really go out as much because, Texas, especially Houston, it goes up to 100 degrees. So I cannot really go out that much. But in the morning, when the sun is not high up yet and I could get some sun without the UV, I could definitely go out and walk my dog or do something outside at the park, the brain fog is lesser, and then the dips are lesser as well. So I feel like I'm energizing myself, just the fact that I'm going out there in the sun, and also sitting down. I actually am not sitting as much as I used to here in Texas as I was in Jersey, because in Jersey I feel like I'm in the best health
Hmm.
now that I moved to Texas, because I'm more out in the sun, I'm sitting less, and I go out and like I go to the gym because my mood is better, the
Yeah.
serotonin and the vitamin D.
Yeah,
So
your endorphins, through movement, like the more you move, the more you actually feel like you want to move even more. And like you're saying,
yes.
like that light motivates you to start moving. Well, then once you start moving, you want to keep moving. And it just relates. And it's so interesting because you're talking about something that we practice within my method, which is that we look at the sun throughout the year and we realize not just the sunset and the sunrise, but we look at the meridian, which is the time of the day that the sun is the strongest, like it's right above your head. And it's just that usually that relates to heat. It's warmer and that is what you want perhaps in the winter. So then you can make your routine just a small adaptation. It might also include that you go out for a walk every single season of the year, but the time that you go out for a walk is different. And that's often something that gets missed because it's like, oh, I go for a walk on my lunch break. But in the summer, that's not really feasible nor perhaps healthy in a way for certain people. So like you're saying, going out in the morning instead of going out after lunch. But in the winter time, you can actually go out after your lunch perhaps. And it might be, again, depending if you're in the Midwest, you actually want that little bit of energy because the afternoon is so short that then we kind of go towards a crash, and it's kind of cloudy. So knowing those things, knowing the meridian time allows you to implement those behaviors, in a different way. To follow up with that, the question becomes, how about your social dynamics? Like within your social life, and when it comes down to the practice as well, do you see that seasonality happening differently in Jersey than in Texas?
Totally, totally. Texans are warmer in personality, I would say. Like, cause I used to live in Jersey City, so Jersey City is kind of like an extension of New York City.
Hmm.
So people are always, let's go, let's get it done. Let's. I don't want to like small talks are small talks. They don't care about the small talks. Here in Texas, when they say how are you, they really want to know how you are, not just like a greeting, right? So Texan people are warmer, and I feel like the social connections are much better and associations are better for some reason. I don't know if it's just geographic and reason or culture. It could play a lot of like factors, but totally Texans are warmer. They're a little bit, they care more about, balance than to just hustle and grind and whatnot. So social connection is very important because it tells your brain that you are safe and supported. And I totally felt it here in Texas versus when I was in Jersey/New York City, wherein people just want to grind and hustle and build something like really quick. I feel like the life is faster in Jersey than here in Texas. It's slower. So there's more balance. And I feel like that plays a factor, as I said, like more sun, more movement, more sleep. And it's just, I
Yeah.
feel like, I mean, I don't want to generalize New Yorkers and New Jersey people, but Texan people are warmer. And they could agree with me on that because I've been to Texas, Houston, and San Antonio in particular. And, I was telling that with my friends in Jersey, and they were like, yeah, I was there and the people are different. So
Yeah. So, like whether it's in the water, whether it's because of the sun, whether it's because of the temperature, that is the fact. And what is interesting is, you only get oxytocin when you are connecting with people in a meaningful way. It doesn't mean it's with your significant other, but if it's a new person that somehow their vibration and their warmness gets to you, that's going to create that chemical, which again is that positive neural chemistry loop that we kind of want to create we started with sleep, we started with exercise, nutrition, and now we're talking about things that, I mean, have you even considered that being part of your health? We're talking about connection with nature nature. We're talking about connection with others. And that has a significant impact because you only produce oxytocin in that manner. And you know, as a nurse practitioner, the benefits of oxytocin, the way we feel. So it's like the endorphins when we exercise, it's like our mood or energy is a lot much higher. So we can probably get a lot more done. So my question to you is, have you noticed a productivity increase in you, the way that you perform at work, the way that you perform at coaching, the way that you feel throughout the year, the way that you get across people and how you motivate them, like your actual motivation to do things and to start projects that might be challenging? Have you noticed a difference?
100%. When I was in Jersey, I usually get tired and fatigued easy. Like after work hours, I just don't want to go out. I just don't want to go anywhere. And I'm sorry to tell it, but I don't even want to talk to anybody. Like I just want to be in my bed. I want to watch TV and, bed rot and then go back to work the next day. But here in Houston, I just moved here 3 years ago. 3 years after, I already have three thriving businesses and still have a nurse practitioner career. And I am always on the go, like always networking with people, just like you, Ruben. I mean, I have so much gist for life now that I am more active. I go out in the sun as much and I exercise and I fix my diet somehow. So I feel like we need that as balance because we tend to isolate ourselves when we don't have the balance. Like when you just don't stretch your limitation a little bit, because it will be hard in the beginning. Like it's a complete 360 for me and it took time for me to adjust, but I get out of the funk. I've been watching YouTube as a sedentary person. I was watching YouTube videos, go out in the sun, work out more, eat healthy. And I started doing that. And I noticed a change after, I want to say 30 days, but
Mhm.
I was still feeling the struggle. But after 30 days, 60 days come, I was like, oh, I think I could do this. I could be consistent with it. And after 90 days, I couldn't go a day without working out. I feel bad if I eat junk food. And then I feel so bad if I don't sleep enough. So I
So
feel like this is really important.
will it be fair to say, I really want to get deep into why the change happened, right? Because like I jokingly say, well, it might be in the water, it might be in the sun. Like, let's go deep in there. My question to you is, did you ever feel that motion, that thriving, that energy, that motivation in Jersey? Perhaps, and again, I know weather, it also gets very hot and humid there in the summertime. So my question to you is, did you ever feel that way in the spring, summer, and maybe like late fall? Because when you're describing, rotting in bed, like it just kind of make me think about winter. It didn't make me think about summer. So the question is, have you experienced that in a way in Jersey before, but now that you were consistent with it for perhaps a little longer, now you kind of get it and you are in that rhythm? It's like you kind of experience it, but you never really got in the rhythm, perhaps. Like you maybe did it, but then lost traction, and then you did it again, and then you lost it, and you kind of were in that back and forward. It's just, I'm very curious to know if that just happened only in Texas, or it was kind of happening in Jersey, but it wasn't really taking that much traction.
Good question. Yes, I want to say it's subtle at first. It's not very obvious that I have low motivation, weird cravings, and emotional reactivity like moodiness, right? So I did notice that, but it's a burst. Like during spring, I would do outdoorsy stuff and start feeling good. And I feel like at some point in my life, I have the seasonal affective disorder because I get sad in the winter. Like even me and my dog were walking in the snow in the winter and I felt like, oh my gosh, I don't want to even walk my dog, like that bad. And I feel like no matter how I watch funny movies and sitcoms, it would still not make me happy. So it's very subtle at first, and it's a burst of happiness and motivation and energy during spring and summer because you could do outdoorsy stuff. You could go in the beach, maybe go to a park. But comes winter, it was like, man, it was just so hard to fight these mood swings. And my body just couldn't produce enough good hormones to say, I want to do something. So I'm more consistent in Texas, I want to say.
Yeah, so no, it's just interesting. That is a lot of what drives my curiosity of why this happened to us. And like I said early in the introduction, it's just like a very unique perspective that we can gather from you, because then we can become aware of what our rhythms are. So I completely relate. What I have kind to understand is that perhaps perhaps through Texas, that rhythm is not as abrupt, but it has a rhythm like you experience. In the summer is different, it's hotter, a little more humid, but it's a rhythm that somehow doesn't completely disrupt everything that you built up to that point, perhaps. Now, on Jersey, it feels like there's an actual disruption because the environment changes so dramatically. So the way the environment changes, it can be from visual cues, like you look outside and it's gray, it's not green and yellow anymore. It can be sounds. In the summertime, you feel the different sounds, like perhaps it's birds, and I have come to look at it in the whole yearly pattern. Like late summer is like cicadas, and then early summer and spring is like birds. There is a sound to nature. There's an actual vibration. I don't want to go too deep into that realm, but it's an actual vibration. Sound is vibration. And we feel that. And that is a cue. Like that literally is a cue. And when we talk about cues, we're talking about cue is the signal that calls your attention, whether it's visual, hearing, a smell, smells, temperature, the sunlight. That calls your attention whether you realize it or not. It can be conscious or unconscious. And your brain takes that information and has a response. So what I noticed that is a little challenging is that when you experience those positive responses throughout the spring and the summer, and you're getting that groove and you're experiencing the benefits from all angles, that cue changes. And our brain subconsciously goes back to the ways that it was doing it last year, because that's where we left. It's like our brain creates the cues on that visual, physical, feeling, temperature, lighting, environment. And when that environment changes, we miss consciously to, okay, I gotta kind of consciously make that change. Over time, it becomes second nature. But at the beginning, we just go back to what we were doing last year, which is what we were doing last year, which is what we were doing the year before. And the trend repeats. We just go back to that always. So what I notice is that we kind of serve ourselves better by calling it a seasonal cue. Like we are experiencing seasonal cues that change with the season. Then our response is going to be a seasonal response. It's like, okay, when the environment is this way, socially, and in every aspect, I respond this way. I have this behavior. So we're talking about sleep. Okay, when the environment changes, I sleep this way. When the environment is this way in the winter, I exercise this way. When the environment is this way in the winter, I eat this way. And the list goes on and on. The way I relate to people, to the outdoors, and to novelty. So it's just realizing that the behavioral loop that we know, it lacks that three-dimensional aspect of the seasonal, the environmental changes. Because we know from behavioral perspective that the first thing that starts something is the environment. But what has been lacked is the fact that that environment is consistently changing. So what I want to do now is to allow you to perhaps see that if that was the case, if anything, in Jersey perhaps, and now how in Texas, there is not that disruption, so you can get in that flow and you don't get disrupted, so you continue the flow. So I just want to hear from you if that changes a little bit perspective.
So my perspective is like New Jersey. New Jersey is definitely cold. We have 4 seasons, as you said, right? Versus Texas has only 2 seasons. So my takeaway is honestly like for the guests that, are listening, that we have to prioritize the sleep. We have to prioritize the diet. We have to prioritize exercising and movement and social connection as well, because it's association. If you associate yourself with positive people and interesting people, then we end up to do the same. Like if you keep on like eating junk food and you also hang out with people who are also eating junk food, then most likely, even like in your family, right? Like I started eating less rice now because my fiance is Italian. So he doesn't eat rice a lot. He eats pasta and bread, but not a lot. So when I change my diet with my association, it's a complete 360 of my health as well. So health is really the most important factor. I mean, wherever you are, you have to be able to say, I'm going to take care of myself, and decide to take care of yourself so that you can have a better health. So that is my takeaway. No matter where you are, I feel like your body has a way of adapting to it, but like it's just a matter of how strong your immune system is.
So without trying to make that big of a switch, you're talking about health, and we kind of drill it down on behaviors. to achieve that positive health from multiple perspectives. I'm very curious from a financial perspective, which is you are a financial freedom expert. Like that is what you are dedicating your life, other than your practice is to teach people how to be financially free. Is from that perspective, how has that changed? You mentioned now in Texas, I had three thriving businesses, and how that reflects everywhere else. Meaning, when you fix yourself, your health, the way you feel, the way you think, your routines, your behaviors, everything else follows. It's not disconnected, it's completely the same.
That is true. That is true. And this might be out of topic, but it's discipline and having a consistent routine because your body adapts. I feel like if you have a strong body, you tend to be likely most to have a strong mind. So strong body, strong mind. So if you take care of your physical first, I feel like your mind will come next, right? So I feel like when it comes to health and diet and sleep, you have to be able to say, I'm going to bed at 10, no later than that. I'm not gonna eat junk food. Maybe on a Saturday or Sunday, I could, but not for the most part. And maybe like I'm gonna try to talk to five people today or three people today that are worth my time is discipline, because sometimes we have to be able to say I don't want to do it, but hey, if it's gonna make me grow, I'll do it. Especially with finances as well, it's so hard to save money because it's easier to spend than to save. And then after you're done with the saving, maybe you can learn how to invest, or maybe you can learn how to start a business. So I feel like it all starts with the body, taking care of your body first, because that's the most basic thing that you could do. And then the strong mind will come later on. When it comes to health and finances, discipline is what you need.
Where would you like to guide the audience if want to know more about you, what you do? Where can they go?
So they can go to my Facebook page, Mae Dungo, and I have a YouTube account, and I'm launching a podcast in August. You can watch my podcast at in YouTube at Kingdom Cashflow May. So thank you,
We will
Ruben.
put we will put the you're welcome. We'll put the description. We'll put it on the description so you guys can just go down and click on it and be directed if you want to learn more about what May is doing. But I think that we have gotten to the point of the episode that I just like to just start kind of like closing in into what has changed from your perspective when it comes down to your environment, based on your own experience, based on where you have been in life, that the environment has played such a big factor in your life. And you already mentioned it a few times. The environment is not just the weather. You just started dating a person that is from a different culture, and now all of a sudden your diet is changing. This has no limits. So it's like a very personal take, and you can't be grown about it. But how have you noticed the productization in your environment has opened doors for you in other areas of your life?
To me, it's there's a saying that goes, if you cannot beat them, join them, right? So who is them? Who are you associating yourself with when it comes to your health? And when it comes to your patterns, when it comes to your systems in your life, because sometimes people think life is a game that I'm just going to go with the flow and, whatever I hear, whatever I say, I'm going to do it. Like, no, you have to be able to look it up. Like you'll hear something, like, for example, people who are watching this podcast, you'll hear something that maybe a takeaway, and look it up, and maybe what we're talking about makes sense, right? When it comes to hormones, when it comes to health, diet, change for the better. Change for the better and be associated with the right people. You might have to cut off a lot of bad habits, a lot of bad behaviors, but hey, I mean, I would rather have a great life than to have an easy life.
That's
That is
right.
basically my final word.
That's right. Sometimes difficult choices make the path a lot easier than just keep going the easy way and then have to struggle down the line. And what I like to think often is not about me cutting something, it's about me filling my plate with such a great variety of good stuff that there's not really much room for me to do the other stuff that perhaps I don't want to do. And when I do it, well, no big deal, because I'm doing so much greater on the good things that, it's not a significant portion of it. So that's when, when I think about sleeping and exercises and nutrition and novelty and all these things that fill your plate with the good stuff, with the salad first, and then the protein, and then the carbs, right? So thank you so much, May. I am deeply honored that you're here. Thank you so much for your time, and I am sure that our audience has gotten a paradigm change, a perception change. I'm sure something has clicked. Thank you so much for sharing with honestly your perception and what you have lived through. It is very valuable, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. So for you guys that watch this episode, thank you so much for watching. Our goal with this episode is to bring real transformation to real stories from people that are doing good things in life. And I guarantee you that if you continue to get advice from the podcast, you're going to see your life transform. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next episode.